Excuse me. Excuse me. Okay, I would like to do an introduction for our speaker this evening. We're very, very fortunate to have this individual with us. And in fact, everybody that knows football knows what a lateral is. Well, Ken Long, who's a secretary to the Army, was going to be here. He couldn't make it. He's involved with the Dragon Boats. This is major international competition. He's involved with it down in Saratoga, Florida. But in his place, we have Captain David Christian. And so I'd like to tell you a little bit about Captain David Christian. He enlisted into the Army shortly after graduating from high school. He was only 17 years old, would you believe? He went through basic, AIT, AIT drill cadre. He went through OCS. He was commissioned as a second lieutenant at 18 years of age, which made him the youngest commissioned officer since the Civil War. Pretty amazing. He entered and completed airborne paratrooper training at Fort Benning. He was Green Beret trained at JFK Special Warfare Center, 3rd Special Forces, Fort Bragg. He did 2 tours in Vietnam, leading the 1st Infantry Division LRRPS, Rangers, and RECON. He first of the 26th Infantry. He served with the son of a famous World War II general, George Patton. He conducted dangerous recon missions with the 11th Armored Cavalry Division on the Cambodian border. I think we're all familiar with that. The men under Dave's command have always praised his skill of command. He was a teenager from Levittown. He earned the Distinguished Service Cross and 2 Silver Stars. The men of his recon unit, and they credit Victor 6, Victor 6. That was his call sign, with bringing them home alive. And also for his heroism. He's been twice recommended for the Congressional Medal of Honor. The commanding officers have recognized Captain Christian's performance in their officers' efficiency reports as equaled by very, very few. They've identified his recon team as the most successful in the battalion and always volunteering for the most hazardous missions. Because of the confidence his supervisors had in him, his unit was allowed to operate independently in enemy-controlled territories, not only for days, but for weeks at a time. They praised his belief in his men and his success in dangerous missions that is seldom seen in an officer of his age, grade, and grade. In addition, Dave was awarded Air Medal for 25 combat assaults into hot landing zones. He was awarded the Bronze Star, 7 Purple Hearts, the Combat Infantry Badge, Jump Wings, and the Vietnamese Service Medal, 2 Vietnamese Crosses of Gallantry with Palm and Bronze Star, as well as the Vietnamese Jump Wings. Although he was seriously injured on his 2nd tour in Vietnam, his final badge of courage came in combat from napalm burns, resulting in 2nd and 3rd degrees over 40% of his body. Captain Christian was medically retired at the age of 21, with the rank and privileges of a Captain 03 for life. He spent the next 7 years in military hospitals, going through operations and procedures. Captain Christensen continued his education while recuperating from his injuries. He earned a bachelor's degree in political science in just 19 months at Villanova. He pursued a master's in government at the University of Pennsylvania and a Juris Doctorate from Rutgers School of Law. He studied intensive Russian language at Middleburg College in Vermont. Dave has continued to serve our country throughout his lifetime. He has had 4 presidential appointments. He was Senior U.S. Advisor on Foreign Relations and Defense. He has been advisor for congressmen on legislation and writing Agent Orange and PTSD legislation for veterans and active military, along with creating jobs from 2001 to the present. He has been recognized by the Veterans of Foreign Wars as one of the top 50 most decorated veterans in Vietnam. Again, thanks to Dave and to his lovely wife, Peggy, for joining us. They've been married for 53 years, have had 4 children and 6 grandchildren. That was probably combat enough right there. But ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our friend and a true brother, Captain David Christensen.
And you wear a nice hat.
I put a couple pages here together, but you know, we went to the same areas. The folks in this room here, if you can't hear me, just raise your hand, because I can't hear. I'm wearing hearing aids all the time. So as a result, my wife, she can never hear me. She thinks I'm playing with my hearing aids. But I just can't hear, I'll tell you the truth. I ran into some pilots recently, Army pilots, chopper pilots, and they said, did they give you these special things to put in your ears when you got in the choppers? And did they give you special, sports clothing when you were in basic training and AIT? And I said, no, we were in a different army, I think. I said, what they gave me about 50 years later was hearing aids. I'm glad I can walk, but I tell you, I got a call. Kenny Wong is the assistant to the Secretary of the U.S. Army, and Kenny's a good friend of mine. He's in Sarasota, and he's actually competing against my daughter. My daughter's in a competition with him in dragon boats. Dragon boats we saw in Thailand, if you went to Thailand at all, Cambodia, these wild-looking boats, and people paddle on both sides of these boats. So it's really fierce competition, and they're into it. And Kenny gave up meeting people, wonderful people. The 173rd, assault helicopter. I mean, it just, you look up, and I tell people I'm going out to speak to the 173rd. Everybody thinks they're saying airborne, airborne. I said, no. These guys were airborne, but they didn't jump out of the ships. They shot from those ships, they flew those ships, they didn't jump out of those ships. And I think you probably took me to some of my first missions. I remember in Special Forces, when we were finishing up JFK Special Warfare Center, they came down and they asked for volunteers. And they said, we need a couple volunteers because we're starting these things called LRRPS. I never heard of LRRPS in my life. And I said, look, I'm too smart to be in combat. I'm too pretty, I'm too rich, I don't care. I'm just not going to be in combat, I'm sure. So you got me as a volunteer for them LRRPS. It sounded like a 7-Eleven Slurpee. So I volunteered. This other guy volunteered too. So I went with all these highly trained, skilled professionals in terms of my team. And everybody was like an E6 and above on my teams in reference to the Special Forces. They're going out with some wild and crazy guys, and nobody was E5. They were all E1s. They kept going up and down the ladder there. But they were some great troops. So that was the 1st Infantry Division, where somebody yelled out here, Lai K.
Like
yes,
yeah.
We were headquartered in Lai K. And one of the things, in June of 1968, it was probably one of your choppers, we had a Cobra. We had 2 Cobras, we had a team trapped, we had a battalion around them. They were surrounded, and the chopper pilots made their own decision. They were going to have one chopper go in hot and burn up the area around them. The second chopper was they were going to jump on the skids, hang on to the, whatever they could hang on to. I mean, and we have pictures of it, you know, the guys drew from artwork. The pilot there should have got the Medal of Honor, coming in and hovering, and if you hover for 10 seconds, everybody in this room knows it's 10 of the longest seconds in your life. And these guys jumped on the chopper, the team jumped on the chopper, and it shows them flying out over the treetops. The pilot was put in for a Silver Star by our men, and by his unit commander, it was put in for a discharge, a dishonorable discharge. He was not to do that. So we all testified in his behalf. We wrote up things, and he ended up getting a Silver Star. He got out of the military because his career was considered finished because he had a black mark on his record there. And unfortunately, that X across his record there hurt this guy. Our team is still pushing for that pilot to get the Medal of Honor.
Cool.
And we never forgot that guy. Great guy. And aside from writing reading what I wrote here, I'd just like to tell you that the Air Force was first approached in reference to taking the helicopters. They started the Air Force in 1947. It used to be the Army Air Corps. My wife's father served in World War II with the Army Air Corps. When they could transfer you, once they needed soldiers, they could transfer you to infantry. So they could move you all over the place. Well, in 1947, the Air Force said, we don't want those. They were calling them bugs. We don't want those bugs. They're not going to stay around. It's just a fad. We're superstars. We fly the big wings. We fly everything else. Now the Air Force is kicking themselves because if they would have taken the helicopters, they would have had a whole section. They would have had Fort Rucker. They would have had, Texas. They would have had all the different places that we have helicopters today, and they would have been out saving us on the battlefield. Now, so we do work close with the Air Force, as you all know. I jumped out of Air Force planes all the time. I've been in Bosnia, I've been in Iraq, I've been in a number of places for the U.S. government. And it's always Air Force planes I was on. Once you're on the ground there, if you want to move around country, you're on Army helicopters. So it's like a transition. So we still have a close working relationship with the Air Force there, but they really do kick themselves. I talked to people, and I think it was a General Curtis LeMay or something like that. He was the one who said that, we're moving towards the atom bombs, we're moving towards all this big stuff, and you want to give us grasshoppers. So we don't want to take grasshoppers. But I'll never forget the first time I got on the chopper and I was going out to the field with my team. And I had my legs dangling out over the side, and I'm looking at the countryside, and I really didn't think there was a war going on. I mean, I was above the war there for a while, and I was talking to the chopper pilots there, and the door gunner, and they said, we don't want to go where you're going. I said, look, I don't want to be in one of these ships where you are, so we didn't want to trade places there. But they would drop us in, and oftentimes the Tactical Operations Center would come up with an idea, and supposedly it was intelligence, and they would research the intelligence they had, and they would say, there's a battalion coming down here on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. I did most of my work in 3 Corps, in War Zone C, in Benoit, outside the jungles of Benoit, Quin Yon, Lai Kay, Anlock, Lac Ninh. All you folks are familiar with those places. I've been there, done that, and I got stabbed in the left arm. I was close enough to the enemy. I could bring souvenirs home from the enemy. I didn't want souvenirs, but I got to do the things that you wanted me to do on the ground, and you got to do the things that I wanted you to do in the air. Now, as a young lieutenant on the ground, we had no forward observer. I had no air traffic controller guy with me or any of that stuff. It was my responsibility. So I would originally call in the Air Force. I'd call them in, and I was mentioning the table here. I didn't like to use smoke that often because sometimes in triple canopy jungle, you couldn't identify the smoke. By the time I got up there, you're saying, where are you? Where are you? So we used white phosphorus. I made sure that the guy that was throwing had the best arm in the unit. And I wanted that white phosphorus as far away from me as possible. I came from a military family, so military for me was moving up in life. And I wanted to be in the military. My mother had to sign the contract, and she cried. She said, why are you joining to be an airborne paratrooper? I said, Mom, the guy asked me if I like fresh air. I said, yes, and he asked if I like battling brooks, if I like camping. I said, everything I want to do, Mom, it's good. It's like the Boy Scouts. She said, yeah, except they're going to shoot you. So my mother had to sign the contract, and she was a sweetheart of a girl. She met my father in the Philippines in World War II. She was on General Douglas MacArthur's staff. And she was working the typewriters and getting the public relations out. She left the Philippines, went on to New Guinea, Australia, returned with the general, and her typewriter broke. My father's MOS, believe it or not, was typewriter repairman. So he was a courageous typewriter repairman. I don't know if he got a V or not on anything, but he was courageous. But he was 6'5", and my mother was 4'11". So, I mean, if you see the pictures of him, it's really kind of cute. But he was this tall, lanky guy, blonde hair, blue eyes. And my mother was just you know, she was smitten by this guy. And they corresponded. He was from Alabama, and she was from Pennsylvania. So they were always corresponding with letters. Even after the war, they corresponded. But it was like a mixed marriage because he was a Protestant, she was a Catholic. So it was like a mortal sin to start off with. So he actually, because he loved drinking, and so he figured he had enough to drink, he told her that he would convert to Catholicism. So he converted to Catholicism. He figured he'd convert to something else the following week. Unfortunately, though, in the guys in World War II, as in all wars, in our war, he had, I think, post-traumatic stress. And he had a terrible drinking problem. And he left my mother with 4 children. And I was 7 years old. My little brother was 7 months old. And I didn't hear from my father for 21 years. And I wanted to hear from him, because he was still my father. I mean, you may have problems with people, but you want to know about your heritage, your genetics. Maybe you're going to get this disease or that disease. You also want to know about your roots a little bit. So my mother died, she pinned my bars on, and while I was in special warfare school, she got sick, and we didn't have insurance, and she was walking up the steps. And she was a courageous veteran who served with the general in the Philippines, and we had no insurance. And because she was a woman, they had no place for her in the VA. And she walked up the steps and lost her breath, and my oldest, youngest sister at the time, she was taking care of 2 other girls, and she went to the prom that night. When she came home from the prom, my mother was dead. She found my mother dead at the base of the steps. But I think it was a blessing for my mother. She would never been able to take the wounds at her son. I was machine gunned across the chest. I was stabbed in the left arm, as I told you. I was paralyzed in this hand that I'm holding my speech in. And Jim and I were in the same kind of beds together, striker bed. And in a striker bed, they flip you over. And you're in this striker bed. Well, that's a great thing if they do everything properly. Sometimes they'd forget your yarn bag. It's like an anchor. And they're flipping you, and you say, whoa, whoa, slow down. But Peggy came and she visited me in the hospital, and she was pregnant, and we thought we were going to have a wonderful life together, but it scared me. They gave me the last rites, and I'm Catholic, and the last rites means you're like a first class, stamp to heaven. And I said, look, Padre, I'm not going. Take your last rites and take them with you. I don't care. And I just kept wanting. Everybody laid there. We were just talking. We were all naked in the burn wards and in his ward, the paraplegic ward, and we were just wanting to recover. And we just wanted to come home. And that was my thing, to bring my men home. And I think of all the times. We repelled in at nighttime. And we had to be off your ships. And I would say probably 12 seconds. 12 seconds and we're in trouble. you could start to pull out. And you'd hover for 11, 12 seconds. And supposedly, we're going in just to reconnaissance the enemy. That means you don't engage. You confirm. So I would confirm with the Tactical Operations Center, yes, we're close to a battalion out here. There may be a division, of something. Well, a couple times they dropped us right in to the middle. And when they dropped us right into the middle, the choppers would have to, somehow figure out how to save us. So I'm here today because of your folks. We walked to the same flight pad, went into the same hooch, checked in. You guys were getting your orders to, take your birds. You named your birds. It was kind of funny. The birds means they're gunships, or they're, the Hueys, or light observation helicopters. The guys with the Chinooks, I used to get mad at. I want to shoot them myself because they blow everything away. But after I got on them, I loved them, It was just a different type of life. It's a cowboy life. All the pilots in this room, anybody that worked on a helicopter in this room, they were cocky. They had a chip on their shoulder. They were confident. They were superstars. And I was one of them. I was outside the box.
You do look like a superstar with a scarf on.
You got my vote. But the thing that was really surprising to me was the war was much more comfortable to me than society. Coming back in society was scary. I watched it on television. I watched the demonstrations. I watched people screaming, "Bring them home, bring them home, bring them home. Veterans, we got to bring the veterans home." And we came home, and nobody, at the time, there was a civil rights movement going on. There was a movement for women, for women's rights. There was brown rights for Hispanics. There was rights for Eskimos. There was rights for everybody. And everybody would want to take you to lunch. But a veteran, nobody wanted to take a Vietnam veteran to lunch.
And we were baby killers.
And we were all those things supposedly. On the ground, I can tell you, gentlemen, and your wives, that we were a combat unit. I never killed a baby, never killed a woman, unless they were trying to kill me. If a woman was trying to kill me and she had a gun, she's not here today. She's neutralized. When you go on television and you're doing a report, you're not allowed to say the word kill. If you're doing a report at the Pentagon, I was doing a report at the Pentagon recently, and I said we killed the enemy. We had 6, 7 enemy, and we killed them. And they said, Captain Christian. They still call me Captain Christian. I said, thank God I made some rank. What about a private? They'd still be calling me private. So they called me aside and they said, you don't use the word kill in the Pentagon. You have to use the word neutralize. So I knew you neutralize people. And I'm saying, this is unbelievable. And I knew it was happening, this type process of politics that may have turned against the veterans in the beginning. It started in Vietnam. I got a memo to report to the division headquarters, and they gave me a memo and they said, do not use the word KIA anymore. You use the word KIHA. And I said, well, what the hell is that? They said, you're killed in hostile action. You gotta be kidding. And you wanna use WIHA, wounded in hostile action. I said, well, if you're picking us up in the jungle, and I'm calling you on the radio, do you think we were playing patty cakes and we fell out of the sandbox? I'm gonna use KIA and I'm gonna use, WIA, and the men are gonna come and get us, and we're gonna get out of there. The wounded, there were 300,000 wounded plus in Vietnam that lived. As many people were wounded in Vietnam as were wounded during World War I. The same number of people. And the reason those people, myself included, and all the people in this room probably got hurt some way, shape, or form. The reason we're here is because those choppers were there. Those angels in the sky. I'm telling you, the U.S. Army without helicopters, the U.S. Army without the choppers, whether you're bringing in heat on the Cobra, you got the M60 burning on the side of your plane, whether it's a light observation helicopter, which I call a Loach, you call a Loach, whatever it may have been, you were like angels to the United States Army, guys on the ground. And we always thought that we'd be saved. You guys would always, and you had such stamina and guts. And you were young and foolhardy. I was young and foolhardy, and we did some crazy things. But it was just sad to see what was happening in society. When I went to law school, they brought in Jane Fonda because they didn't They did not like the fact that they found out that I was a war hero. And I said, look, I didn't make myself a war hero. My men, said that I did these things. You don't do this yourself. You have a team. And teams do this. Well, they did not, really want me. I wasn't well received there. I was asked to disrobe because they said, look, you don't look disabled to us, so we want you to take your clothes off. And this is the dean. These are administrators. And one guy, his name was Peter Bent. He was an assistant dean of admissions. And he took a pencil and he outlined my scars. And he said, I shot deer less severely than you. And they died. I ate them. I said, well, you're not going to eat me. I'm alive here. But you just have to keep pushing. And I pushed so hard. I pushed for legislation, wanting to be an advocate. I pushed hard. I didn't care if Jane Fonda, I debated Jane Fonda and Jesse Jackson. And we're in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, University of North Carolina. And Jesse Jackson looks over and said, look, I am not going to debate this man anymore. He said, an empty church with just him and God is going to be thunder. And then Jane Fonda, she had to stick her nose in it. Jesse Jackson was paying me a compliment. Jane Fonda said, frankly, she said to me, you are nothing but a baby killer. You are nothing but all these bad things. And then I said to the student body, which was ROTC, I said, frankly, my dear, you're nothing but a traitor. And then I walked off the stage. The audience, this was a college audience in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. The audience got up and gave a standing ovation because they were so proud that someone stood up and said, hey, look, we're just doing our jobs. Do you know we won our mission? We won our mission. Our mission, we had to stop communism. When we left, we had won all our battles. We had stopped communism. They were afraid communism was going to go into Cambodia. Communism was going to go into Thailand. Communism was going to sweep all through Southeast Asia. Guess what? When we left, communism wasn't there. When we left, unfortunately, politicians who dropped the ball on us when we were in Vietnam. You can't win a war, you can't win a baseball game, you can't win soccer, you can't win anything if you're put on defense. We're supposed to fly to the border. You tell me how we know there was no line there. Fly to the border, be dropped in, and report on activity in the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And then we're not allowed to go any further. And they would drop us right on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. You can't win a war. You can't win a war. So we learned that a couple things out of Vietnam. And one of the things is you can't commit young men and women to a war until you commit the nation to a war. Otherwise, when they come back, the nation is not going to remember the people they sent. They didn't know. They didn't know our pain. People, if they had an expensive piece of equipment and they wanted to hire somebody and they had applications in front of them, they could have applications and everybody was equal. But if they found out you were a Vietnam veteran, they were hesitant to hire you. So we had trepidation with employers. We had the highest unemployment rate ever. We had the longest war ever, 10 years. And we stopped communism. And for that, as someone in the audience said, people spit on us. I came back on a stretcher. I'll tell you the truth. If they spit on me, I'd have come off that stretcher and ripped their heart out. And I only had one arm that worked. So I wanted to say that to this audience and to every audience, those who served and fought in Vietnam were honorable men, honorable women. Those that served did their best. That's all you can do in life. If you can say, I did my best, that's a wonderful thing. But we can't have another protracted war. What they're not doing is Afghanistan and Iraq situation. Nobody studied Vietnam. We kept saying you can't have a protracted war. You have to have an end game. You have to have different lessons there. We had our second protracted war. And it's difficult. It hurts those in uniform. To leave guys behind that they worked with, it hurts those in uniform. And we've already been there. We're saying, wait a second, didn't they learn anything from Vietnam? And then I remember fighting with the school board in my first locality. It was in South Jersey, near the Philadelphia Navy Hospital. They closed Valley Forge General Hospital. It was kept open for General Eisenhower. As long as he was alive, Valley Forge General Hospital was open so they could fly him over there and take care of him. As soon as he had passed away, they gave all the patients notice they're going to be transferred all over. You pick your choice of an assignment, and we could pick a hospital. So I picked the Philadelphia Navy Hospital because it was close to universities and it was close to the Navy Hospital. You also had VA, you had a number of different things that you could supposedly go to. The Navy Hospital was good to me. I mean, Luke Polar, I met Chesty Polar there. Luke Polar was almost cut in half with an RPG. He was right next to me in the room. And Luke, his father was talking out to God. He was saying to God, didn't know I was there. And he's saying, God, why couldn't it have been me? Why did you have to take my son? You know, and his son lived, ended up committing suicide later. We had in Vietnam, at the time, I would be giving speeches and fighting for legislation, and the reports were coming back that we had more men killed by suicide from Vietnam than we have on the wall in Washington, D.C. Now, if that's not a social disgrace, and today they're saying there's 22 people a day dying from suicide. Well, just think about the Vietnam War years. Just think when nobody wanted to shake your hand. Nobody wanted to give you a hug. And you tell them you're a chopper pilot, and what they see is on the newsreels, they see people, throwing bombs at it and supposedly throwing people out, doing all these terrible things. No one ever thought that the Vietnamese were trained with our choppers too. And certain things that happened, the little girl that was burned with napalm, she has the same type burns I have, all up her back and her crotch and stuff. That little girl was burnt by Vietnamese forces, not by our forces. But they never reported that. Life magazine didn't report it, front page, the cover page, and everything else. We really got hurt in a lot of ways. When I talked about post-traumatic stress legislation, the people that fought me the most were trial lawyers. They're saying, no, you can't have this. Guess who uses post-traumatic stress legislation the most of any group? Not veterans, trial lawyers. If you get caught in a helicopter, or not a helicopter, if you get caught in a helicopter, you do have to get a lawyer there. But if you get caught in an elevator, they'll file for post-traumatic stress. There's almost anything. They took our legislation that was meant for veterans that had trauma, that experienced different horrible things, and their families could have some relief, and they turned that around, and so they're using it, and as a result, you have people questioning post-traumatic stress. And it upsets me. It upsets me knowing. Agent Orange, my older brother, I thought, you don't need me in Vietnam, you have my older brother. He's 2 years older than me. He went over on a ship. So he went to the 1st Infantry Division on a ship, and I thought, geez, I'm going to the Pentagon. I went to the Pentagon and I said, look, ich spreche Dutch, aber nicht so gut. He said, what the hell are you saying? And I could park right out front. I had my cousin, I picked her up, she lived in Glen Burnie, Maryland, on the way down to the Pentagon. I said, look, you just tell them that you happen to be the son, or a daughter rather, of an admiral, okay? And I'm going to park right in front of the Pentagon in a 4-star spot. I'm going to run in, I'll be out real quick. So I didn't realize how fast I was coming out. After I spoke in German to them, this major called the sergeant major over and said, say that again, Lieutenant. So I said, I speak German, but not so very good. And they both put their hands out, and they're looking at me. And I thought, wow, I won them over, hearts and minds. And I shook their hand, and they said, congratulations, hopefully you find a German colony in Vietnam. I didn't. And none of you guys that were flying could speak German either. So I was still there, but it was a unique time in my life. I can say it made me a better person. Uncle Sam was good to me. After I fought, I had to fight Uncle Sam. I had to fight Uncle Sam for me, for my brother. My brother died of cancer. His MOS was chemical warfare. So he mixed Agent Orange every day. He had tumors all over his body. He was 6'1", weighed 90 pounds. And I would go out with him. I'd take him out and I'd go to introduce him. They'd say, "Dave, is this your father?" And it would break my heart. He was such a good kid. He was a quiet guy. My wife will tell you, he wouldn't hurt anybody's feelings. I mean, this guy, if you wanted to do something and he was in line in front of you, he'd let you go in front of him. If you needed something, he was that type of guy. But God said it was his time to come home. And he went home, back to the heavens. But he left me here. My mother left me here. And we have you here that we have to keep speaking out. One of the things that we have done as veterans, World War II guys didn't do it. None of the other groups did it. We have welcomed home the new veterans coming back. We have told them, thank you for your service. And that's all we wanted was a little thank you. We didn't need a parade. We didn't need anything. We just needed a smile. We're all gregarious. We're human beings. We just want to be hugged and loved. And sometimes we don't deserve it, but we deserve it coming back from Vietnam. Now, George Washington said, and I'll paraphrase here, that if you want to raise another army, a second army, to protect this nation, you have to show the young men how you treated the first army. So it was very important to, if you want to raise another army, think about it. If you don't treat them good, they won't go. My wife was just bragging at the table. She said, "Can I have a second here? I just want to tell everybody. We just dropped our grandson off of West Point."
Yeah.
Thanks, my wife. But, you know, we have people that want to serve their country today. We have people that want to get benefits. We have people that look at us and they call us heroes. None of us feel like we're heroes. We just did our job. Just did our job. You don't have to call me anything. Don't call me late for dinner. I'll bite your hand. One thing I like is food. So maybe that was something I caught in Vietnam, but I like an awful lot of food. But I look at 16th Street. I'm walking around to the White House there, and on the corner of the VA, the administrative building, there's a plaque in the wall, and it's President Lincoln, and saying that they established you want to treat the veterans, and you have to start an administration. They didn't start it because he was killed, but it said, you know, it's for those that are born in the battle, and for the wife, the widows, and the orphans. You know, so we're starting a veterans administration back in the 1860s. It didn't take place until the 1930s, and the people that got the first benefit were the World War II veterans. Some of the veterans administrations are good, and some are not so good. But I can tell almost everybody in this room, when you got out of the service, they didn't tell you you could be an SES employee, a senior executive level employee. You could take a test, and they will teach you how to pass the test, and we'll pass that test, and you can retire. You've been retired at $160,000 to $180,000 a year, same salary as a Supreme Court justice. Anybody in this room told that?
No.
I wasn't told that. Nobody I know was told that. All these high-ranking positions, the VA spends over $300 billion a year right now. They spend $16 billion on maintenance, mowing lawns around their buildings. $16 billion. I even made a statement before the United States Congress. I said, look, take 2 or 3 years worth of your billions, close all the VAs, call all the veterans together, and just give us a few million each. We'll be happy. We'll be real happy. But I would like to close. I mean, the aircraft are so important to me. I mean, jumping off those skids into elephant grass, and sometimes, you know, I heard people say the elephant grass could be 10 feet high. I thought it was 20 feet high sometimes. I mean, you just come down through that elephant grass and you think, geez, where's the bottom? It's almost like jumping out of an airplane. But it was a unique experience, and God let me live through all that trauma. Let me have a wife, 4 children, 6 grandchildren, one now in West Point. And everybody looks to me as, you know, like the crazy grandfather or the crazy uncle or whatever. But I would die for any one of those kids. I would. And so would you. And I'd like to close on a quote from JFK, if I could. And JFK made a statement, and everybody should know this statement in America, and he would paraphrase, I don't know where he stole it from, but I stole it from him. I used to walk with my little dog with me. I'd tell people he's a fake service dog. People didn't know what a fake service dog is. So I'd get up to give a speech, and I had my fake service dog. People would say, what's that dog doing up on stage? I said, he's my fake service dog. I'd say, okay. They didn't know what to say. But as I was speaking, I was thinking about everybody. In my life, did I do something good for people? Writing legislation? Did you do something good? We did good in Vietnam. We did real good. The pilots did good in Vietnam. And JFK made a statement that poor is a nation that has no heroes. Beggared is a nation that has and forgets. And I added a quote, they want to put it along a river on a stone, and then from Captain Christian it says, wretched is a nation that has heroes and mistreats. And if you take an oath to serve your country, you take an oath to give your life, and we didn't know what our future was going to be. Everybody in this room, we didn't know. For our husbands, for our loved ones, we didn't know if we were going to leave all widows in this room or all girlfriends with broken hearts. We didn't know. But I'll tell you the truth. We helped each other. And we're helping future veterans. And we are making a difference. So I've been back to Vietnam many times. I took my whole family back to Vietnam. And it was a wonderful experience. The people in Vietnam that I know, and the people in Vietnam, as I see the green grass there and the lush lands there, they love Americans still. They love Americans. Maybe because of our pocketbooks, but they love Americans. So with that note, I want to bring John back. I want to say thank you very much for having me with brothers that saved my life, that put me in harm's way, gave me the opportunity to neutralize some of the bad guys, and KIHA, got to learn a new phrase, but John, come back here. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having me.
Can you believe it? Huh? I mean, we have a hero here, and he's still fighting for all of us. He's still fighting the battle for all of us.
It's not over till we hit the ceiling in the sky.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Everybody.
Wow, that was fantastic.
I see you sitting out here.
That was fantastic. Okay, we're gonna mosey on down to the lake. We have a fire pit set about there. We're gonna do some dessert, some s'mores. Plus, we have an additional